each step. What in order? I can't go through with it. Okay, I did it. That's pretty much how it was in AA for me. But let me get to the good stuff. Let's see. Monday I had 7,753 days, one day at a time. If I add 5, multiply by 2, divide by 75, take the square root of 6, it comes up to 7,756 days, one day at a time. And I'm sober only by the grace of God, because I fellowship with people like you who knew exactly what I needed when I stumbled into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And because our spiritual program, the AA way of life, worked for me, one day at a time, when everything else I tried prior to that never did. I want to tell you right up front, I'm the beneficiary of your individual and collective experience. Nothing that I'm going to say is original. Everything that I'm going to say came from somebody else, their experience, or came from our AA literature, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, our 12 and 12 pamphlets, pass it on, just our AA literature in total, because I'm an avid reader of the literature. Like I said, my name is Amyn A. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a member of Central Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We meet at 604 German Street at the Alco Club. This past January, our group and a lot of my home group members like to promote this. They're proud of this. We celebrate our 78th AA anniversary. That's a group I sobered up in. That's the only group that I know. They helped lead me into the AA way of life. I had a sponsor who really believed in this program of Alcoholics Anonymous. He staked his life on this. He explained to me in a practical way how to apply these steps, these traditions, and these concepts of world service in my life, not only in Alcoholics Anonymous, but outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm active in service in my group. Like many of you, I love my home group, and so I'm committed. I am currently serving as the GSR. I have a commitment to lead the Big Book study on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. I'm also District 51's correctional committee chair. So I'm heavily involved in corrections, and I carry a meeting, which I haven't been doing it as frequently lately as I could, to Lumberton Correctional Institute in Robeson County, in the Robeson County Jail. And these are things that my sponsor guided me into. I got a good deal with my sponsor. I got 2-for-1 deal. He took me through the steps and he sponsored me in the service. So, I've been pretty fortunate in AA. So let me get to my story. In AA, they tell us we should describe our stories in a general way. And I'm glad that they do tell us that, because there's a lot of stuff during my drinking career that I just can't remember, because I was a blackout drinker. And so a lot of stuff I can't tell you in detail, but I can tell you in a general way. So I'll do the best I can to do that. So I'm supposed to tell you what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like now. So, and I don't think that I'm any different from any other alcoholic. My drinking career was unremarkable. Just like my sobriety, unremarkable. I just one day at a time keep putting one foot in front of the other, and I get the results based on what this program tells me. If I do, then I'll get certain results. So my drinking career was pretty unremarkable. I got drunk, had blackouts, got in trouble, and wound up in Alcoholics Anonymous, unbeknownst to me. Alcohol has always been a part of my life from the day I was born. And let me try to explain. My grandfather, my mother's father, he was an alcoholic. He died from alcoholism at 54 years old. My mother, She was a heavy drinker. She's described in the big book as a heavy drinker. She had problems from alcohol, right? She died at 69 years old. My sister, now there's 6 of us. Every single one of my siblings and I suffer from the obsession and compulsion, right? Whether it's alcohol or whether it's drugs. Once we put it in our body, we couldn't stop. We set off that phenomenon of craving, and I didn't know this before I got to AA. We set off that phenomenon of crazy, and then things just went off the rails for us. My youngest sister died 2 years ago at 49 because she couldn't stop. I got 2 brothers who are still struggling to find a way up and a way out. I have one brother that's younger than me. He just recently celebrated 11 years clean. And then my sister that's 2 years younger than me, she had 14 years of clean time, and she decided it was okay to drink. And so for the past few years, she's been struggling. And I had a conversation with her a few weeks back, and during the conversation, we discussed where she was at in her life, why she wasn't making any progress. And I asked her, did she think that alcohol or drugs had something to do with where she was at? She thought about it. She said, yeah. She said, I was afraid to admit it to you. But she finally did, and she's willing to get help. Because she knows where the help is. She's just not willing yet. She just wasn't willing at that time, but now she's willing. And I'm grateful for that. So alcohol has been a part of my life from the day I was born. People in my family have suffered from alcohol or drug addiction. And I've always loved an alcoholic. My grandfather, my mother, my siblings, people in my family. I grew up in New York City. And in New York City, drugs and alcohol are rampant, rampant. And growing up as a teenager, a lot of us resorted to that. And one of the reasons that I turned to it might not be the primary reason or only reason, because I was always restless, irritable, and discontent. I never felt comfortable around other people. I would describe myself as socially retarded because I just couldn't connect with you. I didn't know how to. And when I drank, I was able, those inhibitions reduced, and I was able to approach you in the best way I knew how. And I thought, I found my solution to being a part of. That was at 14 years old. Now here my mother is, she's a single parent. Now she got her own problems. She was a good mother, but she was just the kind of person that enjoyed a little drink now and then. And she was trying to raise 6 children, and here I am, the oldest of the 6. Started drinking, started getting out of control, was a problem for her. I was the kind of teenager, once I started drinking, that I would steal from her. I would break into the house, find wherever she hid her money from me, because she had to hide it from me, and I would steal it to go down to the store to get something to drink. And I didn't care. All I wanted to do, I was on a mission to get something to drink. And once I got something to drink, I got that sense of ease and comfort. And when I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and Dr. Silkworth described that men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol, I didn't drink because alcohol tasted good. Beer didn't taste good to me. Wine didn't taste good to me. Liquor didn't taste good to me. But the effect was what I really was after. And once I got that effect, I was good. By the time I was in high school, I was a daily drinker. I didn't go to high school to get an education. I went to high school to get with my friends who drank like me, and we would get together, chip in, get something to drink, and then we would be off taking the subways through the cities trying to find the hooky parties. We found a lot of them. We found so many that the administration at the high school I was so-called attending decided, well, we don't want you here anymore. You a truant, so we're expelling you from school. We're going to send you to night school so you can at least get your GED. That was a bad idea, because if I didn't go to day school, why would I go to night school? Bad idea. And I continued to go, down the scale till I got to the point where my mother had gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired of the way I was mistreating her. And so she got the opportunity to move to some other part of the city, left me in the house alone because she took my siblings and moved to another part of the city, which she didn't tell me. And I wound up staying in the house until electricity was turned off. I didn't have a job. I couldn't pay the electricity. Couldn't buy oil to burn in the furnace, so there was no heat. And eventually, I took the geographical cure. I came down here to North Carolina, and my mother's mother was living down here. She was living in Rayford. So I came down to Rayford thinking things were going to be different. But my grandmother is the type of person that reminds me of a good sponsor. They tell you what you need to know, even though you don't want to know it. And she said, listen, you're not going to live up off me. You're going to do something. You're going to get a job, or you're going to go back to school. Now, here I am. I'm 20 years old, right? Most kids that are living a normal life, they graduate from high school about 18, at the latest 19. I'm 20 and I still haven't graduated from high school. I didn't know it then, but that is an indication of how alcohol was starting to affect my life. Didn't graduate from high school, sat out a couple years, 20 years old. So thinking I was finding the easiest off the way, I decided to go back to high school. Now I'm in high school, 20 years old. I only needed one more year. I graduated from high school at 21. I should have been in college. Most of you probably were already in college by the time you were 21. Here I am in high school. So alcohol is starting to beat me up a little bit. And, finished high school with no problems. Here comes my grandmother again. You're going to do something. You ain't just going to lay around here on me. And let me tell you a little bit about my grandmother. So a couple years ago, she deceased. She was 102, right? She got sober at 35 and never had another ounce of liquor. She used to drink heavy, but she got saved in the church, right? I couldn't get saved in the church. She turned her will and her life over to the care of God and tried to live the 10 Commandments and tried to be of service to her Creator. For 67 years, she stayed sober. My little time that I have in this program, didn't matter to her. What mattered to her was how I was living. And she was finally happy that y'all taught me how to live, right? And she was so happy that she allowed me, when she wasn't able to later on in her life, she allowed me to be her caregiver and to handle her financial affairs. Because I had learned enough in AA how to be responsible, how to be committed, and how to care for somebody else beside myself. And so I got a job. The only place that would give me an opportunity was a place in Rayford called a House of Rayford. It was a turkey processing plant. It was a factory. I never worked. I get in this factory, and there's people in there working hard. I lasted 2 weeks. I said, y'all can have that turkey plant stuff. And I struck out on another adventure. And my next adventure was to go to college because I had a high school diploma. I was 21. Why shouldn't I go to college? So I applied to a few colleges in my area, and the only one that gave me an opportunity at their institution was Lewisburg Junior College in Franklin County, just north of Raleigh. Now, when they accepted me, I had all the intentions of being a good student. I wanted to be a good student, but alcohol got in the way. I got up to Lewisburg College, and those good boys in Franklin County introduced me to the White Lightning, and I was done. I lasted 2 semesters. I drank my way out of that opportunity. I had a roommate who had just been discharged from the Army Vietnam era. He had stuff. He had just got out. He had all this stuff that I was impressed by. Because I told you, on the inside, I wasn't comfortable within myself. I would always judge my inside by what I seen on the outside. When I seen this guy with this stuff, I said, if I do what he did, I can get some stuff. I asked him about, what the military was like, et cetera, and he told me about it. So I went down to the recruiter to sign up. Now, I didn't sign up for the Army. I didn't sign up for the Marine Corps, and I didn't sign up for the Air Force. I signed up for the only branch of the service where there was water involved, and I had never been in any water over my head. And that's an indication of the way I thought. I never thought things through during my drinking career. Once I got a thought in my mind, I just ran with it. So I joined the Navy, 1977. Went down to boot camp in Orlando. First thing they had us do was jump off a diving board in 12 feet of water. We were supposed to swim or tread water for 5 minutes, and we were supposed to use our clothes as flotation devices. They demonstrated to us. When I got my opportunity, I jumped in the water and I sank straight to the bottom. I didn't drink enough water for them to do any CPR. Someone fished me out quick enough that, I didn't halfway drown. So, I was able to make it through that portion of basic training, and to complete basic training in 12 weeks. And no incidents, because we were in a pretty controlled environment. My next duty station was Great Lakes. For my training school, I was trained as a hospital corpsman, a Navy medic. No problems there. Lasted about 2 months there. It was cold, really cold up near Chicago. That's what I remember about that. My next duty station, we had this thing they call a dream sheet. You put down where you want to go. I wanted to go on ships because that's what the Navy was about. I didn't get to go to a ship, my first real duty station. I got to go to Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego, California. I went out there thinking it was going to be like my first 2 duty stations, really controlled, not a lot of opportunity to drink. But when I got there and got in the barracks, as soon as I went walking towards my room, I passed the beer machine on the floor I was on. I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. It was great, all right. I had my first blackout in San Diego. And that's how my drinking career went from that point on until the last time I picked up a drink, in January 2003. Fortunately, I was never involved in a fatal or serious accident behind the wheel of a vehicle because I always got behind the wheel of a vehicle when I drank. And when I go into the prisons over these years, I see guys in there that did the same thing that I did. Got behind the wheel of a vehicle and were involved in a crucial or fatal accident. And they're sitting behind bars in the brown suits. And I was like, but for the grace of God. And I'm monumentally grateful that I escaped, at least up to this point. Now, I'm not cured. I could say all this good stuff that I'm saying right here, right now, and leave this meeting and go straight to the liquor store, because I know where they're at. I just haven't been compelled to walk across the threshold of a liquor store yet, and I hope I don't. But, I had blackouts during my drinking career. I had a 15-year military career, and that's only because of people like you. They may not have been in AA, they may have been in AA, but they were guided by a spiritual presence. And they were the ones who, every time the captain asked me why I did what I did, and I had to stand mute because I couldn't explain it, they stood up and spoke for me. And they would say things like, he's a good sailor, he's valuable, and he's worthy of what they call rehabilitation. And I got a lot of rehabilitation in the military. I got rehabilitation 3 times. The first time I got rehabilitation was when I was working at the drug screening lab. This is about 1980, and the Navy was just starting to get more rigid on drug use in the military. And I was working at the drug screening lab in Little Creek, Virginia. And they have to test my sample too. And they said, no, you can't work here. Your sample doesn't pass muster. So I got rehabilitated. The second time I got rehabilitated, I got assigned with the Marines to Okinawa, Japan. This was about 1982. And I went over there thinking that I can be an entrepreneur, because in Japan they told me that people can't get the drugs or whatever, the pills, the capsules, the tablets that they want over there. So I was going to be the entrepreneur, and I was going to make sure I had a supply for them. I got over there to Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, Japan, and as soon as I got on the ground, not too long after I got on the ground, let me put it that way, I was in handcuffs. I was facing time in Japanese prison or jail, but again, somebody at my command intervened on my behalf, said he's a good sailor, he's worth rehabilitating. I got rehabilitation for the second time. The third time I got rehabilitation, I was still a corpsman. I had duty in the pharmacy, and I had the night duty overnight. And so in my mind, I got this obsession to try to figure out what these pills, capsules, and tablets that were in this book called The Physician's Desk Reference that would control, what they would do. So I did it, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think I'll take that one. I think I'll take that one. I think I'll take that one. And my plan was to, after I got off of duty, was to go find out how these pills, capsules, and tablets would affect me. But I didn't get that opportunity, because when the shift changed and they had to count the controlled substances, they figured out some were missing. And they came directly to me. And I tried to figure out how they found me. Well, I was the only one that had the keys to the controlled substances. And like I told you earlier, when I got something in my mind, I didn't think it through. I got my mind, I obsessed over it, and then I just went for it. So those were my 3 habilitations. But fortunately, there were people who stood up for me. And I think, when I think back about it now, I think about how God has always placed people in my life to guide me toward AA. Because there were always people at pivotal points in my life who put their reputation, their good name on the line for me, so that I can, because they seen something more in me than what I was showing by my behavior. And so I managed to have a 15-year career from 1977 to 1992. And I got out as a disabled veteran, because Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, here I am again. I'm on a ship headed towards the Gulf, doing maintenance on the radar, decided to take some shortcuts. And when I went up on that radar mast, because I didn't strap my harness properly, I fell to the deck and damaged a few vertebrae in my spine. Thank you. So the Navy said, you can't go back on ship anymore. We're going to put you on medical hold and see if you can be fit for full duty. And I tried, but I couldn't get fit. So they discharged me from the Navy as a combat-related, service-connected disabled veteran. And now I'm no hero. It says combat-related in my service records. I'm no hero. I'm just stupid. If they would have gave out medals for being stupid in the military, I'd have a whole chest full of them. Because I did a lot of stupid stuff in the military. But it wasn't because I was ignorant or lacked intelligence. It was because alcohol told me to do certain things that weren't in my best interest. So I got out in 1992, and I said, Amyn, now you're in charge of yourself. You don't need anybody telling you what to do anymore. Nobody's going to tell you what to wear, what to eat, where to be, when to be there, those kind of things. That was in 1992. By 2001, I was homeless and on the streets of Philadelphia. That was my last duty station. So I stayed in Philly because that's what I knew at the time. And 2001, I found myself homeless and on the street. And I was okay. I was getting a disability check. I was able to drink like I wanted to drink. I lived an entire year in Philadelphia in an apartment that had no heat. And it was cold. When I think back about that, I'm like, how did you do that? A whole year. And then, so I went from that to living on the street. And it was okay. It was okay for me. Lasted about a year because one of y'all found me on the street, a good member of AA. And he knew me from being around, and he offered me a room in his house. He said, but you can't drink. And I said, sure, no problem, I won't drink. And I knew I was going to drink. I was going to drink, but I wanted to get off the street. And so I commenced for the next 6 months to drink in his place and get away with it. He was the first one to introduce me to AA. One meeting, but my mind wasn't on the meeting. I was still in a fog. And so nothing stuck. Nothing at all stuck. And that was in 2001, the latter part of 2001. And I didn't find my way back to Alcoholics Anonymous until February 10th, 2003. So I was out there suffering for 2 more years. And what led to me getting to AA was I was coming back from New York after a week of binge drinking in New York, and I was driving back, and I had to pull over to the side of the road because I couldn't function and I couldn't drive, so I pulled over. I was in Greenbelt, Maryland, on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, and I was sitting there trying to get myself together, and here comes an officer pull up behind me to see if I needed any assistance. He didn't like what he seen, threw the handcuffs on me, and I'm sitting in the back of that squad car. That was January the 2nd, 2002. And I was 2003, excuse me. And I was trying to figure out how I wound up there and couldn't figure it out. And I knew based on the charges that I was going to have to see federal judge, because these were federal charges I was facing. And I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't figure anything out other than now would be a good time to get into treatment. Because when I would go to VA, I told you I was a disabled vet. When I would go for my VA appointments, the doctors would always say, you think you might need some help? And I couldn't figure out why they would ask me that question. They must have seen something that didn't quite, figure out. And they would say, well, if you need help, we could help you. We could help you. And so I figured if I get into treatment through the VA, that would look good for the judge. And so what I did was, when I got back to Fayetteville from Greenbelt, Maryland, I had an appointment with a VA doctor in February. After my appointment, I asked the doctor if there was a treatment program at the VA. Said yes, up on the 5th floor. I went up to the 5th floor, seeking some help. And the only reason I was willing to seek some help because my ass was on fire, excuse my language. And another AA member intervened in my life, Amyn A. At that time, she was a member of good standing of AA. She had 17 years of continuous sobriety. That was in 2003. And she's still a good, outstanding member of AA. She has almost 40 years now. She made a suggestion that I was willing to take, and she said, do you think you might want to go to a recovery house while you're going through treatment? I said, I don't have anything else. I just came from homelessness on the street. I had been living with my grandmother, and like I told you earlier, she said, you ain't going to lay around on me. So I said, well, maybe I'll go to the recovery house. I have a roof over my head, and I have a bed, and that seemed to be the best thing at that time. And so I went to the recovery house, and like this meeting, they had the 12 steps and the 12 traditions on the wall. That's the first thing I seen when I got there. So it was a house guided by some principles. They made us go to these meetings. They would put us on this white bus, 15-passenger van, and haul us around the meetings in Fayetteville. And that's how I got slowly introduced to AA. They mandated that we get a sponsor. I wasn't smart enough to know what a sponsor was and what a sponsor did. So the house manager assigned me a sponsor and said that the man who comes here for the meetings weekly, he would make a good sponsor for you. So I got up the courage to ask him to be my sponsor. And that was my longtime sponsor until he deceased and went to that big AA meeting in the sky. He took me through the steps. He sponsored me in the service. He introduced me he talked about the circles we run in. Just about everybody that I'm close to in AA is active in some kind of service at some level of the service structure, whether it's in their group, whether it's in district, whether it's in area, or whether it's in, general service. My current sponsor, he was a trustee, at general service. So I've always been around or been guided by individuals in AA who's been active in service and have a good working knowledge of the steps, the traditions, and the concepts for world service, which they share with me on a regular basis. So my sponsor took me through the steps. He ushered me into service. He introduced me to a lot of good people in Alcoholics Anonymous, who I'm still friends with today. The steps have done a marvelous thing for me. I used to be the kind of person who couldn't fit in. Now I know today that I have some principles in my life which guide me, that allows me to fit in anywhere on the face of the earth. One of the first things that I was taught in AA was the principles of the steps before I even got into the steps, so that I'd know what these principles are for the steps. And in some areas of the country, they're different. You may have been exposed to some different principles. There are a bunch of them. But the ones that I learned, they're the ones that keep me grounded on a daily basis. And, I mentioned when I walked up on the podium that, those steps were a large order for me, because I never had any guidance other than in the military. I did okay when I was in the military because there was somebody that was guiding me on a daily basis. But when I'm left to my own devices, my life seems to spin out of control. And when I got to AA, there were people that guided me from the recovery house during my time in AA that guided me, and they made sure that my ideas weren't the only ideas. Because like I said, once I get this idea in my head, I'll run with it. And people have always guided me in AA and helped me not to sabotage my sobriety or sabotage my life. I was 47 years old when I got to AA. I'm 68 now. My mother died at 69 because of the way she drank. My grandfather died at 54 because of the way he drank. AA has been of tremendous value to my life. I'm no longer that person who's restless, irritable, and discontented. I was the guy who wasn't able to graduate from high school until I was 21 years old. While I was in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to get an associate's degree, I was able to get a bachelor's degree, I was able to get a master's degree, and I'm just this month from getting a doctoral degree in education. So AA has afforded me some opportunities, and because of the principles I've learned, I've been able to stick to it, be responsible, and take advantage of the opportunities that I'm afforded. Before I got to AA, military, I managed to do 15 years, but not left to my own devices. When I got out of the military, I couldn't hold down a job. I was a hit and miss kind of person. Some days you see me at work, most days you wouldn't. While I've been in AA, I've been able to hold a job. I had the same job for 15 years. I worked at a university. I taught classes. I recently retired. I'm 2 months into retirement. I was able to retire from a job because of the way that AA principles have been imparted to me and how I practice them in my life. I showed up for work every day. I did a solid job for my employer, and I'm able to enjoy the benefits of retirement, which I could never see that when I was out there doing my drinking career. I was homeless and on the streets at one point in my life for a while. Come to think of it, I was homeless on the street of Philadelphia, and during that 2 years I was in a recovery house, I was homeless, because I didn't have a home. So, AA has allowed me, through practicing some traditions, to be able to save money, to pay off debts, because I owed the federal government, I owed state government, I owed child support, And I was able over 11 years to pay off those debts and help my financial situation so that I was able to afford my own home. Now, that may not be a big deal to many of you, but it's a big deal to me. Because I was the guy who, like that first step, I was powerless and my life had become unmanageable. Now, over these many years, I've been able to manage my own home and all the things that come along with that. I told you earlier in my story, I wasn't able to develop a relationship with other human beings, not intimately. I wouldn't tell you what was going on up here, and I didn't want to know what was going on with you, because I didn't care. I was selfish and self-centered. But because of AA principles, I met a young lady. She's not a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought I was emotionally and spiritually able to court, because y'all told me when I first got to AA, don't get involved in any emotional entanglements. So I waited 5 years. I thought I was good. And I met this young lady, and I wanted to date her. We went on a few dates, and she said, "You're not ready. You're not ready." Because you're not ready for a relationship, because I was still emotionally immature. And so tucked my tail between my legs and went back to doing what y'all told me to do, work on myself in AA, get active, work with others. And over the course of time, I learned how to be less selfish. We crossed paths a couple years later, and we haven't been apart since. In August, we'll celebrate 14 years of marriage. We got a good marriage. It's not perfect. If anybody has a perfect marriage, I need to know you, because I want to get better, and I need a sponsor in marriage. Well, because sometimes when I get some thoughts in my head and I don't think things through, I can cause friction in the relationship. But one thing good is that we can always talk about things no matter what they are. For my wife, I got to give it to her. She's a lot more spiritually grounded than I am. And I'm grateful that God placed her in my life. She's a wonderful woman. Have 4 children. Before I got to AA, I was absent in their lives. I was absent in their lives. And y'all told me that I need to clean up the wreckage of my past, so I went to them and I made amends to them and said, I'm sorry for not being present in your lives as y'all grew up. And I don't know if it's funny, but the thing I'm grateful for is that each one of them told me, "Dad, we knew you were doing the best you can." At their ages, they were so profound. And I'm great, and I gotta say, the mothers did a great job with them. The mothers did a fantastic job, because they're all grounded. They're all useful and productive citizens of society. Two served in the military. One just retired 2 years ago after 20. One's been in 17. He's got 3 more to go. My oldest daughter, she works for the federal government in York, Pennsylvania. And my youngest daughter, she's presently in Italy on a trip with her boyfriend, and she's getting ready to complete an associate medical program at Community College of Philadelphia, my alma mater. So I'm monumentally grateful to the mothers that raised these children, because they've cut me a lot of slack over the years. And they turned out to be wonderful, wonderful grown-ups. So I told you, what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like now. I think I'm a pretty okay guy. I don't cause havoc in people's lives like I used to. My day goes like this. I get up in the morning, I do my prayer and meditation like y'all taught me. I go to the gym, I work out a little bit. I come home, I ask my wife if there's anything that she needs for me to do, and if she does, I do it. Because one longtime AA member who has almost 50 years sobriety used to tell me, the way you can keep your marriage solid is by getting this last word. And he may not have said it like that. This is just my interpretation. You can always get the last word. Yes, dear. And it works. It works. And so, when she asked me, when I asked her if there's anything I can do, and she says, I need for you to do this, that, and the other, I say, yes, dear, and leave it at that. Then after that, I work on my doctoral program assignments that I need to work on for a couple hours. Then I do my AA meetings, and I'm the kind of person that I like to have a variety of AA meetings, whether they're Zoom, whether they're my home group, whether they're meetings that I go to out of town, or another AA meeting in Fayetteville. I like all kind of different meeting formats. I like big book study, I like traditions, I like step study, I like speaker meetings. So, I just love AA. There's no other way to put it for me. Just the other day, I was in a Zoom meeting. I was out in Killeen, Texas, and it was a group of, it was a clean group, and there was old time in it that had 55 years out in Texas, and here I am talking about all this high-level AA stuff, about the big book and about the steps, and he just broke it down in simplest terms. He just talked about practical ways of how to stay sober. Because one of the newcomers asked, I have these cravings, and I don't know what to do. And I'm talking all this AA, go to meetings, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that's all good and dandy, but what do you do when there's no meeting? What do you do when there's no other person around? There's some practical things you could do. He went to the Living Sober book. He talked about keep some chocolate on you, keep some candy on you, keep something sweet, because that will help reduce the craving. And I said, my goodness, that's just so simple. So at this phase in my sobriety, I'm going to try to keep it simple. Because after some time in AA, I got all this AA stuff in my head and I want to get it out. But the best way to get it out is by keeping it simple, right? Because that's what y'all did for me. Y'all kept it simple for this guy. And so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I want to thank Daniel for inviting me tonight. I had a good time. I don't know if you get anything out of what I said tonight, but guess what? It helped me stay sober for this time. It's 40 minutes, and I'm grateful to you. Thanks for letting me share.